Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name Elzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all in 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? Welcome to yet another mini-cast in which the Straight Chilling crew comes at you, but in a much more bite-sized version. Today, I want to talk to you guys about a movie called Villains. This came out in 2019, and when the trailer dropped, I remember we talked about it on the show a little bit. I don't think it ever actually got a theatrical release, but it's currently on Blu-ray and on VOD. I rented this off Amazon for like $5. So if you are curious, it's available for you to watch. And it's not an outright horror movie, but it is horror adjacent, I would say. And it's also starring a couple of actors that are known for doing horror work. So you got Maika Monroe in this, and also Bill Skarsgard is in this. So you've got some heavy hitters, talking about Pennywise the Clown and, the girl from It Follows. So yeah, it's just to kind of give you a spoiler-free rundown real quick of the plot, in case you are interested in watching this new release. Pretty much what happens is we've got a couple, which are Maika Monroe and Bill Skarsgard. They're playing Mickey and Jules, and they kind of have like a natural born killers vibe going on. They're mid-20 somethings, and they're robbing convenience stores and just kind of getting by any way they can. And they have this plan that they want to get to Florida. They're going to be on Easy Street as soon as they make it to Florida. That's their destination. The movie starts with this sort of really nice family footage of, like a VHS tape, like home movie kind of situation of like this family on the beach in Florida. And it's very nice. But after that, we kind of cut to Mickey and Jules, and they're robbing this convenience store. And this movie has a healthy dose of comedy. So it starts off showing them wearing these like huge like animal masks that cover their whole face, their whole head. They can't really see very well. They run into this convenience store and they can't figure out how to get the register open. And they're like, oh, maybe we got to buy something. You got to scan something. Then the register will open, and they reach for this like, giant candy bar, and they scan that and it finally opens. They get the money or whatever. And they jump in the car and haul ass. But they're obviously fairly inept criminals from the get-go. As they're making their great escape, they run out of gas. They break down on the side of the road. They look across the street, and they see there's a house that's sort of in the middle of nowhere. There aren't really like neighbors necessarily, not for miles anyways. So they go over to this house. They're going to steal the car in the garage and make their break. So they get in the house. They can't find the keys. So they go downstairs in the basement. They're going to get a gas can. They're going to siphon the gas, put the gas in their car, and then haul ass. But when they're down in the basement, they find a little girl chained up. And they're like, what the fuck is going on here? So that's basically the setup of the movie. Of course, it gets a little hairy from that point on. Like I said, there's a decent amount of comedy. There's not a ton of gore going on in this, maybe a little bit. There's obviously some like home invasion type vibes going on. But I mean, if you like these actors, I would say this movie's definitely worth a watch. I personally really enjoyed this movie. The only other two characters in the entire movie that enter the plot are the homeowners. They're a slightly older couple. George and Gloria. They are played by Jeffrey Donovan and Kyra Sedgwick. When they enter the movie, just the four of those four characters interacting is just phenomenal. They deliver really, really solid performances that I think elevate the writing, and just watching them do what they do on screen is very, very enjoyable. Specifically, the character of George steals the movie for me. Fucking kills it. I definitely recommend the shit out of this. Like I said, just don't expect an outright horror movie, and you'll be good to go. But I'm going to go ahead and drop that spoiler warning, and then I'll get into the rest of Villains. So here we go.
Spoiler warning.
All right. So one thing this movie kind of sets up really well from the get-go is the relationship between Mickey and Jules. So when they are making their initial break after robbing the convenience store, they run out of gas. Mickey is stressing out. He doesn't know what to do. And Jules says, hey, you know what? You need a car wash, which at this point you're like, what the fuck is she talking about? So Mickey lies down on the ground and she sort of straddles him and like drags her hair over the top of his face back and forth kind of slowly. And I guess this is what they refer to as a car wash because, you know, it resembles a car wash. And it's a very like sweet, intimate moment between the two. And they kind of share this calm moment. And the way the whole scene is framed is you get like a POV from each of the characters, him looking up at her, and then it'll rotate her looking down at him. And it's just very intimate, and they tell each other that they love one another. And you're like, okay, so these guys are kind of nuts. They're a little crazy, but they are like seriously in love, and like they're 100% there for one another. And like you buy that relationship from this point on. That you're like, okay, sold, got it. They just set that up really, really well. Pulls you into the movie, and you're like kind of with them from that point. So they break into the house, and they start grabbing some food. They're kind of hungry. It turns out the fruit that's like on the table is fake. It's a wax fruit, and they get a bowl of cereal, and like the cereal's stale. So you're like, okay, so whoever like lives here doesn't spend a whole lot of time here, or what's going on. So they're trying to figure out what to do after they can't find the keys for the car that's in the garage. And they say, all right, we need a creative boost, okay? Let's get a creative boost. So Jules opens up her purse, and it's loaded down with drugs. And they do a few lines of cocaine, and then all of a sudden, Mickey has this great idea that they're going to just go find a gas can and siphon the gas out of the car, and then they'll be on their way. They find the kid, and that's when George and Gloria come into the picture. Like I said, they're a little bit of an older couple, and they're like very snazzy dressers, but like in kind of a retro way. So like George has on like, you know, a nice shirt, and it's like tucked into his slacks, and he's got an ascot, and his hair is like perfectly parted and like kind of gelled, and just very maintained. His wife has like this kind of classic, almost 50s looking dress, and she's holding a baby, but the baby's wrapped up. You can't really see the baby at all. And Mickey and Jules, they pull a gun on George and Gloria, and they're like, you know, where are the keys? And George is a salesman. That's his trade, and he's a smooth-talking gentleman. He's got a nice southern twang to his voice. And he tries to do some fast talking and convince the kids just to leave without their daughter that's chained up in the basement. They're trying to break her free and haul ass with her now. George is like, there's no way you're taking my daughter. And he does what he can to get out of the situation, but Mickey's not buying it. So they go down in the basement, and George takes the shackle off of his daughter's ankle, and she doesn't seem like she wants to go. She's nonverbal. She doesn't say anything. She might be like, I don't know, 8 years old, 9 years old, and something like that. She doesn't look like she really wants to go. So Mickey tries to like put a hand on her shoulder and kind of pull her along, and she bites him in the hand. And then George headbutts Mickey, knocks his ass out. He wakes up tied down to a bed, and Gloria is she's trying to take old Billy Skarsgard to Bone Town. She wants some of that Pennywise dick. So she does this like very awkward strip tease thing, and this couple is probably like, I don't know, early 50s perhaps. So she's doing this strip tease thing, and she's got like old school looking sort of like lingerie stuff on, and Skarsgard, or Mickey, he's not quite into it, so she's trying to seduce him. She grabs his dick, and I guess he's not erect, and she gets offended by that, and so she kind of starts beating on him a little bit, and then it cuts to the next morning, and he's still tied up, and he's like, okay, well, maybe if I play into this a little bit, I can get her to untie me and then maybe make a break for it. So he's apologizes, and he said that he was just like, he didn't know what was going on, but now he knows what's going on, and he's like way into it now. You know, he's like, let's do this. And, so they start making out, and he does pop a boner this time, I guess. So she believes that he's into it, and he's like, you know, I really want to touch you. Just, you know, untie my hand so I can touch you. So she does, and then of course he like throws her on the ground and hauls ass for the door. George shoots him in the leg so he can't get away, and he handcuffs the two of them in the basement together, which at this point in the movie, they're trying to figure out how to pick the handcuffs. Jules has a tongue ring in which they collectively rip out, which is kind of brutal. They use the tongue ring to pick the lock, and Jules is set free, and she's trying to find a way to sneak out of the house. She's not able to do it, but she does find her way into the baby's room, which the baby that was wrapped up earlier in the film that you were unable to see. She looks into the crib. There's just a porcelain doll laying in the crib. So I guess Gloria was unable to bear children. She's always wanted kids. It just hasn't happened. So she's got this fake porcelain doll that she carries around as a baby, which is bizarre. And she's in the baby's room, and she overhears Mickey, and it sounds like they're about to shoot him dead. But in fact, he has convinced them to let him go, and he's about to walk out the door. But Jules, trying to, what she thinks is save his life, she kind of like ruins the whole thing. So she runs out, reveals herself, and she's from the second story holding the baby over the ledge, and she's like, you know, don't shoot my boyfriend or else I'm going to smash your baby. And Gloria's freaking out. Gloria grabs the gun and starts shooting at Jules, and, you know, Jules is startled, so she accidentally drops the baby. It shatters, which is not a good thing. So they George and Gloria apprehend Mickey and Jules. They knock them out. They come to at the dinner table, and Gloria is super stressed out, and I guess when she gets stressed out, she makes a huge fucking meal. So she's making shepherd's pie, and Mickey and Jules are duct tied to the chairs. They're got these plates full of food in front of them, and the smooth talking George is like, you know what? We decided not to kill you guys, because if we did, people would come looking for you, and then they might discover that we've had this child locked up in our basement that we kidnapped, and of course, that's not something we want people to find out. So George kidnapped this little girl for his wife because his wife was unable to bear children. So he stole a child for her, and they raised her for a little while. And then I guess the sight of her made Gloria feel uncomfortable over time because it was just a reminder that she could not bear children herself. So instead of killing the little girl, which is what Gloria wanted to do, George sort of compromised with his wife, and just they decided to lock the girl away in the basement so they didn't have to look at her, which is terrible. So they divulge all of this to Mickey and Jules, and they're like, well, you might as well eat the shepherd's pie because, you know, you're gonna be sitting here for the next couple days because my wife and I, we're gonna haul ass in about 48 hours. We'll call the cops and tell them that you guys broke into our house, and then they'll come over here and arrest you guys for whatever previous crimes you've done. But by that time, we'll be long gone. They won't be able to find us. So Mickey and Jules believe him. They start eating the shepherd's pie. It turns out shepherd's pie is loaded down with all the drugs that Jules had in her purse. So they start to overdose, which is nuts. And then at this time, cop knocks on the door because he finds the broken down vehicle on the side of the road that matches a description of the people that held up the convenience store the day prior. So he wants to know if, the only house on the street happened to see anything weird. Smooth talking George is on the case, tries to get out of it. The cop doesn't buy it. Cop's too smart. Cop walks into the house. By that time, Gloria has already hid the kids away in another room. The cop walks around, doesn't see anything weird. Cop takes off. So by this time, Jules finally comes to in the next room, and she does a big old pile of cocaine to somehow offset all the drugs that she's already ingested. I guess that works. Probably not, but it works in this movie. So she comes to. She shoves some coke into old Billy Skarsgard's nose. They get the girl. The three of them finally get in the car in the garage. They roll the garage door up. However, George is not to be fooled. He's standing in front of them waiting with the gun. Mickey tells Jules to duck. She does. He floors it, runs clean over George, fucks him up real nice. However, George squeezes off a couple rounds into Mickey's chest, and Mickey does eventually die, which is pretty sad, pretty touching moment, actually. George at this point pulls Jules out of the car. He's choking her out, and the little girl jumps out of the passenger seat, picks up the gun, and shoots George dead. And before George does get shot, his face from being run over by the car is just mangled to shit, and it looks horrific, but like really, really believable. They did a great job with that. So at this point, George is dead. His wife comes out of the house and sees him dead, but she's like kind of batshit insane. So she is talking to him as if he's still alive, and just will not accept the fact that he's dead. And she's just sort of like, cradling his body and talking to him like he's alive. The little girl's okay. Mickey is dead. Jules gets into the car and straddles Mickey and gives him one final little car wash moment, and it's just really fucking touching. That whole thing sounds silly, sounds goofy, but fucking it works, man. It's a very sweet, tender moment. So all we got left right now, we got Jules and we got little girl. They hit the road. They're walking down the road, hitchhiking, and this guy picks them up in a truck, and he's like, well, where do you ladies want to go? Where are you going? They take a moment, think about it. Jules says, Florida. They're hauling ass to Florida. The movie ends with, again, some classic like VHS home movie style footage of a family on a beach that's supposed to be Florida, having a good time, whatever. And that's pretty much it. Then it rolls credits, which are actually like animated and like very stylized and look really, really cool. Like some of the best ending credits I've seen. So you got that going on. And also it's got a dope song playing by Courtney Barnett. I think it's called Pedestrian at Best, I think is the name of the song. It's fucking great. She's an Australian singer-songwriter. Fucking music is dope. So I don't have a ton of negatives to say about this movie. It achieves what it sets out to achieve. It's funny, it's entertaining. The character performances are baller. I recommend you check it out. So I think I'm going to come in with a 3.5 out of 5 on this. I'm kind of grasping at straws for something negative to say about it. I don't know. It's fairly stylistic. And the performances are just, they're all great. I got nothing negative to say. I'm trying, but I got nothing. Sorry. As far as the Rotten Tomatoes scores goes on Villains, the critics came in with an 84. The users are sitting at a 78. And the critics' consensus says, led by a quartet of strong performances, Villains offers genre fans a delightfully dark thriller with a sharp comic streak. Which, yeah, I mean, agreed on all fronts. As far as the cooter is concerned, and we gotta talk cooters, don't we?
Cooter of the week.
Cooter of the week. I think I'd have to go with it's a cooter. It's a cooter power couple. There is no one cooter. So George and Gloria, cooters to the max. Their attire, like I mentioned, is like fairly snazzy and well put together, but it's like they're straight out of the 50s. It's bizarre. They would definitely stand out in a crowd, maybe not in a good way. At least Gloria is sexually deviant because she tries to rape old Pennywise. She wants the clown peen. He's not down to clown. So at least half of them are sexually deviant. They're both manipulative. I mean, they kidnap this little girl. They make her believe that they have her best interest at heart, which they obviously don't. George is super manipulative. The way he's just trying to smooth talk everybody throughout the whole movie, even his wife. He's just sort of conning everybody. George at least is pretty self-important. I don't know about Gloria, but I mean, as he talks about himself and his career as being a salesman, he's very proud at how successful he was, and you can just tell he like carries himself chest out, very, very proud of himself. They're not particularly pathetic in any way, but I think all those other points definitely classifies them as a cooter power couple, potentially the first cooter power couple we've had. Mark that down in your books there, fellow cooter hunters. But yeah, that's pretty much Villains in a Nutcase. If you guys end up checking it out, let me know what you think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Talk to your boy, Bob. So thanks for tuning in, and until next time, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.